You get to the lake, you tie on that brand new lure you ordered online last week, you make your first cast, and the reel handle wobbles. Not the kind of wobble that goes away after a few turns. The kind that tells you something inside that reel is already wrong. You look at the box it came in. The logo looks right. The color looks right. The price seemed right. But the product in your hand is not what you thought you were buying. That moment right there, that is not bad luck. That is what happens when you buy fishing gear from the wrong place. Subscribe before we get into this, because this one could save you real money and a lot of frustration the next time you're shopping for tackle. I'm Jerry Davis, and I've spent enough time around tackle shops, boat ramps, and fishing gear to know that where you buy your equipment matters almost as much as what you buy. Most anglers focus entirely on the product itself, the brand, the specs, the reviews. And that part matters. But if you purchase from the wrong source, you can do everything else right and still end up with line that snaps at half the rated test, a reel with fake internals, or hooks that bend open on a decent fish. Today, we are covering 5 places where anglers consistently get burned, why each one is a problem, and what you should do instead. Some of these are going to surprise you. One of them is a place most of us shop at every single week. Let's start with the one that's probably the most important right now, and that is Amazon. Before someone runs into the comments to argue with me, understand that I am not talking about Amazon itself. I am talking about the third-party marketplace that lives inside Amazon's platform, because those are 2 very different shopping experiences. And most people do not realize they are switching between them every time they add something to their cart. When you buy something that is sold and shipped directly by Amazon.com, you are generally in reasonable shape. Amazon's return policy applies. Amazon has some control over inventory, and if something is wrong, you have a clear path to getting it fixed. That is fine. That is not the problem. The problem is the massive sea of third-party sellers operating under Amazon's roof. Any seller can create an account and start listing products, including products that look exactly like established fishing brands, but are not actually made by those brands at all. Counterfeit fishing gear has been a documented issue on Amazon for years. We are talking about reels with familiar-sounding names on the box, hooks in packaging that mimics well-known brands, soft plastic baits in bags that look almost identical to the real thing, and braided line labeled with pound tests that have never been verified by anyone. Amazon seized more than 15 million counterfeit products globally in 2024 alone. That number should tell you exactly how significant the counterfeit problem is across the platform. And fishing gear is not excluded from it. Here is what makes this particularly frustrating for anglers. The counterfeit products are often priced to look like a deal. Not so cheap that it sets off your alarm. Cheap enough to look like a sale, or like you found the product on a discount. You order what appears to be a well-known reel for $60 instead of the normal retail price, and you tell yourself you found a good deal. What shows up is a product assembled to look like the real thing right up until you actually put it under stress. The drag is inconsistent. The bail spring gives out. The body flexes when it should not. And by then, your money is already gone to a seller account that may not even exist anymore by the time you try to request a return. The way to protect yourself on Amazon is straightforward but requires a few extra seconds of attention. Always check who is actually selling and fulfilling the item. If it says sold and shipped by Amazon.com, you have Amazon's protections. If it says sold by some third-party name and fulfilled by Amazon, or sold and shipped by a third party entirely, look more carefully. Check how long that seller has been active. Look at the feedback count and read the actual written reviews, not just the star average. Be skeptical of listings where the price is noticeably lower than everywhere else. And if you are buying a name brand reel, rod, or set of terminal tackle, Cross-reference the listing against the manufacturer's official authorized retailer list. Some brands publish those. It takes 30 extra seconds and can save you $70. Now let's talk about a place that does not involve counterfeits at all. The problem here is not fake products. The problem is real products at prices that make no reasonable sense. And that place is the resort marina or vacation lake tackle shop. You know, the one. It's the little shop next to the boat rental dock at whatever lake cabin you rented for the week. Maybe you drove up and forgot to pack your hooks, or you need a few jig heads, or you want a specific weight because the wind picked up and your lighter stuff is not getting down. And there it is, a tiny shop with a spinning rack of terminal tackle, a refrigerated section with a few packages of night crawlers, and a wall of rods you have never heard of. The markup at these shops is not a mistake. It is the entire business model. These shops exist in locations where you have no other immediate option. The nearest Walmart might be 45 minutes away. They know that, you know that, and the price on that pack of 6 hooks reflects exactly that dynamic. Products that cost $1.50 at a regular tackle shop might run you $4 at a marina convenience store. A spool of monofilament that sits at $3 on a normal shelf might be $9 here. And the selection is so limited that you often cannot even find the size, weight, or color you actually need. So you end up buying something close enough and hoping it works. There is also a durability concern that most anglers overlook. Products in these shops often sit for long stretches without moving. Monofilament exposed to sunlight through a shop window for months loses elasticity and becomes brittle in ways you will not notice until your line snaps at exactly the wrong moment. Power bait and soft plastics stored near heat can degrade. Bait that has been sitting in a cooler that runs warm is not doing you any favors either. These are not guaranteed problems at every marina shop. Some of them are well-stocked and well-run, but the general pattern is enough that you should plan ahead rather than count on finding what you need once you get there. The smart move is stopping at a proper tackle shop, Walmart, or big box retailer on your way to wherever you are going. Stock yourself before you get there. If you do end up at the marina shop, stick to bait and ice. Live bait is live bait. That part is fine. Just do not buy your terminal tackle or line from a place that charges vacation pricing. Let's move to number 3. And this one catches people off guard because it feels like a smart move at first. Buying used fishing gear from Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or similar peer-to-peer platforms. I understand the appeal. Used fishing gear gets listed at prices that look excellent compared to retail. Someone's selling a spinning combo, a tackle box, a set of rods, sometimes a fish finder. And the photos look decent. The seller says everything works great and they only used it a handful of times. Sounds reasonable. The issue is what you cannot see and cannot verify through a screen. Spinning reels that have been used in salt water and never properly rinsed develop internal corrosion that is completely invisible until the gears start grinding or the drag ceases. Graphite rod blanks can develop cracks at the ferrule or near the spine that are nearly impossible to spot unless you know exactly what to look for. And under load, those cracks become breaks. Braided line that has been on a spool for 3 seasons looks perfectly fine in a photo and snaps at 40% of its rated strength in real use. Hooks get dull. Bearings get contaminated. Drag washers harden and lose feel. None of that is visible in a listing photo. Beyond the gear condition problem, there is the buyer protection problem. When you meet a stranger from the internet and hand them cash for a reel, you have essentially no recourse if something is wrong. Facebook Marketplace does not mediate disputes on local cash transactions. If the seller told you the reel worked fine and it stops working on your first trip, that conversation is over. And yes, some people do sell stolen gear on these platforms. If the price is dramatically below what anything similar sells for anywhere else, That discrepancy is worth thinking about. Used gear from Facebook Marketplace can be a reasonable option under specific conditions. If you can inspect the product in person, spool it up, test the drag, flex the rod, examine the guides under good light, and the seller has an account history that looks legitimate, then the risk goes down considerably. For things like tackle boxes, coolers, landing nets, or rod tubes, the used market is actually pretty sensible because the failure modes on those items are more obvious. For reels, braided line, graphite rods, or electronics, be significantly more careful. Number 4 is something you have seen 1,000 times and probably never thought twice about. The gas station or convenience store fishing section. That little spinning rack near the register with mono in unlabeled packages, a few tubes of power bait, some hooks in blister packs, and maybe a few clip-on bobbers. I know, you're on the way to the lake and you realize you forgot hooks. You see that rack and you think, perfect, I'll just grab a pack real quick. Here is the problem. The fishing products sold through gas stations and convenience stores are not always manufactured to the same standards as what you get from a proper tackle shop. The hooks are often made from cheap wire that dulls quickly and can bend on anything larger than a small panfish. The monofilament is frequently unbranded or branded under a name nobody recognizes, with no meaningful quality control and no way to verify the actual breaking strength, the diameter, or how it was stored before it got there. Some of that line has been sitting under fluorescent lights in a warm building for a year or more. Monofilament does not like heat. It does not like extended UV exposure. By the time you buy it, the material may already be compromised in ways you will not feel until you lose a fish. The bait situation at these places is similar. Wax worms and night crawlers kept in gas station coolers that fluctuate in temperature are not going to be in great shape. Power bait that has been sitting near a window in the sun is not going to smell, feel, or fish the same way it would coming from a refrigerated case at a real tackle shop. The prices are also terrible for what you are actually getting. You can buy a decent pack of offset worm hooks from a legitimate tackle retailer for $2 or $3 and get 30 or 40 hooks that hold an edge and are made from consistent wire. The gas station version gives you 8 hooks for the same money, and half of them may not be worth using. The only time I would tell an angler to grab something from a gas station rack is a genuine emergency situation where you have absolutely no other option and the alternative is not fishing at all. Even then, stick to basic terminal tackle and skip the line entirely if you have anything usable already on your reel. That brings us to number 5, and this is the one that has grown the most in recent years. Ultra-cheap import sites. Wish, Temu, AliExpress, and similar platforms where you can order a fishing rod for $8, a spinning reel for $11, and a complete rod and reel combo for $14 with free shipping. I understand why people are curious. Those prices look almost impossible to pass up, especially if you're a newer angler who hasn't spent much on gear yet, or someone buying a setup for a kid who is just getting started. The issue with these platforms goes beyond just getting cheap products. The issue is that the specs listed on these products are frequently not accurate. A rod labeled ultralight and rated for 2 to 8 pound line may have a blank that is brittle in cold temperatures and snaps on a modest hook set. A reel listed as having 8 bearings may have hollow plastic components where some of those bearings are supposed to sit, or low-grade metal balls in unsealed races that corrode and bind almost immediately. The braided line sold through these platforms at absurdly low prices may be labeled 30 pound and behave like something significantly lower under real pressure. There is no meaningful quality control mechanism behind most of these listings, and no manufacturer accountability when the product fails, because the seller is often just a reseller for whatever factory filled the container. The more serious concern involves terminal tackle. Hooks that open up under load do not just cost you a fish. If you are catching anything with size and the hook gate spreads, you can lose the fish in a way that injures it if you plan to release it. Or you lose a fish that you worked hard to get close to the boat. Fishing lines snapping at less than half the rated strength can result in lures lost in cover, weighted rigs buried in structure, and frustrated trips that should have been productive. The price savings on these products disappear the moment you factor in the experience of losing fish, because your gear was not up to the task. Now, the situation is a little different for certain categories. If someone is ordering soft plastic colors from an overseas manufacturer to experiment with, and the only consequence of a bad batch is that the baits do not stay on the hook well, that is a manageable risk. Some hooks sold through these platforms are cheap enough that anglers buying in bulk for simple pan fishing or cane pole setups report reasonable results. The risk scales with the application. For casual freshwater fishing on calm water, where you are not fighting large fish or relying on precise drag settings, the stakes are lower. For bass fishing around thick vegetation, saltwater fishing, or any situation where your gear needs to perform under real pressure, these platforms are not worth the savings. Look, fishing gear does not need to be expensive to be good. There are plenty of mid-range options from legitimate retailers and established brands that will serve most anglers better than anything on that list. The point of this video is not to tell you to spend more money. The point is to make sure that whatever money you do spend goes toward products you can actually trust. A $40 spinning combo from a brand with a real warranty and real components is a significantly better investment than a $14 combo from a site with no return policy and no way to verify a single specification on the listing. Think about the last piece of gear you bought. Did you check the seller, the source, and whether you had any recourse if something was wrong? Or did you click the price that looked best and hope for the best? Tell me in the comments which one of these 5 places you have bought from and how that worked out. I genuinely want to hear it because the stories people share in the comments section on this topic are always interesting. Smart fishing purchases come down to matching what you buy to the conditions you fish, the frequency you fish, and a source you can actually trust if something goes wrong. The most expensive tackle in the world will not help you if it falls apart on the first trip, because it was never what the listing said it was. Buy from sources with real accountability. Check who you are actually purchasing from on platforms like Amazon. And stock up before you ever leave for the water, so you are not making decisions from desperation at a gas station rack or a marina shop with tourist pricing. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who has gotten burned buying gear from one of these places. I'm Jerry Davis, and I'll catch you in the next one.